Hello? Is anyone there? I can't see you. Hello? Children? Oh. Hello? It's been ages since we visited the Enchanted Wood. It's been so long because we've been so busy in school, some of us, that the forest has got a bit overgrown. Just give me a sec. Oh, that's better. I can see you now. Hello. We're back for chapter 5, finally. Here we are in the Enchanted Wood. We're by the tree. Here we are. We had just got onto chapter 5, which is called The Roundabout Land. So we're going to find out what happens in the Roundabout Land. Here we go. Chapter 5. One big broad branch slanted upwards at the top of the faraway tree. Joe climbed on it and looked down, but he could see nothing. For a while, mist swirled around and about. Above him, the enormous thick white cloud stretched, with a purple hole in it through which the topmost branch of the faraway tree disappeared. He's in the cloud. He's in the cloud. The children felt tremendously excited. At last, they were at the very top. Joe carefully pulled himself up the final branch. He disappeared into the purple hole. Beth and Franny followed him. The branch came to an end, and a little ladder ran through the cloud. Up the children went, and before they knew what had happened, they were out in the sunshine in a very new, strange land. They stood on green grass. Above them was a blue sky. A tune was playing somewhere, going on and on and on. "It's the sort of tune that a carousel or a roundabout plays, Joe," said Beth. It was, and then suddenly, without any warning at all, the whole land began to swing around. The children almost fell over with the swing around beginning so suddenly. "What's happening?" said Beth, frightened. The children felt terribly dizzy, for trees, distant houses, hills and the bushes began to move around. They too felt themselves moving, for the grass was going round and round as well. They looked for the hole in the cloud, but it had disappeared. The whole land was going round and around like a roundabout. Shutting his eyes with dizziness, Joe said, "We've passed over the hole in the clouds. We don't know where the topmost branch of the faraway tree is now. It's somewhere beneath this land, but goodness knows where." "Joe, but how can we get back home again?" cried Franny in fright. "We'll have to ask someone for help," said Joe. The three began to walk away from the patch of the green field in which they were standing. Beth noticed that they had been standing on a ring of grass that seemed darker than the grass around. She wondered why that was, but she had no time to say anything, for really it was dreadfully difficult to walk properly in a land that was going round and round and round like a proper carousel all the time. The music went on and on and on too. Joe wondered where it came from and where the machinery was that worked the strange roundabout land. Soon they met a tall man singing loudly from a book. Joe stopped him, but he went on singing. It was a little bit annoying. "Hey diddle ho diddle round and round and round," shouted the man, whilst Joe tried to make himself heard. "How can we get away from this land?" Joe shouted. "Don't interrupt me." "Hey diddle diddle," sang the man, and he beat time with his finger. Joe caught hold of the bony finger and shouted again. "Which is the way out of this land? And what land is it?" "Now you've made me lose my time," said the tall man crossly. "I shall have to begin my song again." "What land is this, please?" said Franny. "It's Roundabout Land," said the tall man. "I should have thought anyone would have guessed that. You can't get away from it. It goes round and round and round always and only stops once in a blue moon." "There must have been a blue moon when we climbed into it," groaned Joe. "It had suddenly stopped then." The man went off singing loudly, "Hey diddle ho diddle round and round and round." "Silly old round and round," said Franny. "Really, we do seem to meet the most peculiar people." "What I'm worried about is getting home," said Beth. "Mother will be anxious if we're not back before long. What shall we do, Joe?" "Let's sit down under this tree and have a bit more to eat," said Joe. So they sat down and munched solemnly, hearing roundabout music going on and on all the time, and watching the distant hills and trees swinging round and round against the sky. It was all very strange. Presently, a pair of rabbits lolloped up and looked at the children. Franny loved animals and she threw a bit of cake to them. To her surprise, one of the rabbits picked up the cake in its paw and nibbled at it like a little monkey. "Thanks," said the rabbit. "It's a change from grass. Where do you come from? We haven't seen you here before and we thought we knew everyone here. Nobody new ever comes to Roundabout Land." "And nobody ever really gets away," said the other rabbit, smiling at Franny and holding out its paw for a bit more cake. "Really?" said Beth in alarm. "Well, we are new to it, for we only came about an hour ago. We came up the faraway tree." "What?" cried both the rabbits at once, flopping up their long ears in amazement. "Up the faraway tree, did you say? Goodness, you don't mean to say that it's touching this land, do you?" "Yeah, it is," said Beth. "But I expect as this land is swinging round and round, that the topmost branch might almost be anywhere underneath it. There's no way of finding out." "Oh, yes, there is," said the first rabbit. "If we burrow down a little way and make a hole, we can see whereabouts the faraway tree is underneath, and we can wait for it to come round again when the land swings above it." "Well, we came up from the tree just where the grass is, a bit darker than the rest," said Beth. "I noticed that. Do you suppose that's where Roundabout Land swings round? It will come back to the same place again and we could slip down the topmost branch." "Of course," said the rabbits. "We can easily burrow down that green patch of grass and wait for the land to turn around just over the tree again. Come on, quickly, there's no time to lose." All of them jumped up and sped off. Beth knew the way and so did the rabbits. Soon they were back in the field where the ring of dark grass stood. There was no opening now leading through to a cloud down to the tree. It had gone. The rabbits began to dig quickly. Soon they found the ladder that led upwards. Then they made such a big hole that the children could see down it to a large white cloud that swirled below Roundabout Land. "Nothing there yet," said the first rabbit, getting out a handkerchief and wiping his dirty front paws. "We must wait a bit. I only hope the land hasn't swung on past the faraway tree altogether." The roundabout music went on and on. Then suddenly it began to slow down. One of the rabbits peeped out of the hole below and gave a shout. "The land has stopped going round and the faraway tree is just nearby, but we can't reach it." The children peered through the cloud below the ladder and saw quite clearly that the faraway tree was very near, but not near enough to jump on. Whatever were they to do? "Now, don't try to jump," warned the rabbits, "or you'll fall right through the cloud." "But what shall we do then?" asked Beth in despair. "We must get on the tree before we swing away again." "I've got a rope," said one of the rabbits suddenly, and he put his hand into a big pocket and pulled out a yellow rope. He made a loop in one end and then threw it carefully at the topmost branch of a nearby tree. It caught and held. Good. "Franny, slip down the rope first," said Joe. "I'll hold this end." So Franny, a little bit afraid, slid down the yellow rope to the tree. And then, just as she got there, the roundabout music began to play very loudly and very quickly, and Roundabout Land began to move. "Quick, quick!" shouted Franny as the land swung nearer the faraway tree. "Jump! Jump!" They jumped, and the rabbits jumped after them. The Roundabout Land swung off. The big white cloud covered everything. The children and the rabbits clung to the topmost branch and looked at one another. "We look like monkeys on a stick," said Joe, and they all began to giggle. "My goodness, what an adventure. I vote we don't come up here again." But, as you may guess, they did. Oh my goodness. I don't fancy Roundabout Land too much, children, do you? It sounds like we get very dizzy, like on the roundabout in the park when it's time to get off because you're feeling a bit too dizzy. Or at the fair in the winter when you're on a ride that goes round and round. Oh my goodness. No, Miss Fox is far too old for that now. Right, on to chapter 6. See you in a minute.